Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote-unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome. Welcome one and all. Thank you so much for joining me on this magical today. I'm not sure if you've noticed lately, but it is you've noticed that it's Halloween, but around this Halloween time, the veil is thin. It is so much thinner than it normally is. And our ability to connect to our intuition, to hear other people's thoughts, to sense energy is even stronger now. And what I've noticed that's happening, especially this year, I feel like more than others, there is this intensification of the light and of the dark. And it's called for because this is the process that we're going through here on Earth through our ascension process. And as we continue to go through it, as we move more and more further into these vibrations, more and more solidified within these vibrations, these intensifications will continue until we do make this choice in our path. Are we here in service to others, or are we here in service to ourselves? This is what every single one of us is doing here on the planet. And this all has to do with our perspective. Our perspectives are essentially guiding our ship. This ship that is ours, we will go in the direction where we are focused in. And so if we are looking in a certain direction, we will steer our ship there. What I've noticed this time of year, especially this year, is that the attention on the dark forces has become stronger. I was even driving today behind a car when I was running around town, and the license plate on this car said demons. And I found that fascinating because I was already considering talking about this topic today, about demons, about negative entities, about attachments, and a different perspective on what those things actually are. Because like I just said, perspective is everything. And what we tend to do as humans along this journey, which is so incredibly confusing and veiled from all of the knowledge, the deep knowledge, the memories within us, the remembrance of who we are. Because we exist in this illusion of separation, we tend to perceive the negative more easily than we do the positive. You'll maybe notice that if you look at any reviews online, you will tend to see more negative than you will positive, because I think it's 10 times more likely for someone to post a negative review than they are to share a positive review. So that's an interesting thing to think about, right? We're more likely to share the negative than we are the positive, because it is easier in our human perspective to see the separation because of the veil. It is not as easy to see the unity and the love that is the reality that we exist in. we more easily see the illusion. And in our human perspective, what we often do is throughout history, if you think about all of the different mythologies throughout all of the different ancient cultures, whether it is a Hindu ancient culture, a Native American culture, a Greek, an Egyptian, we could go on. There are mythologies of gods and of demons. And what we do as humans is we tend to anthropomorphize these energies, these vibrations. We know that they're there. We feel them. We think that they are outside of us. And at the end of the day, what it actually is us. We contain all of these energies. Now, what I'm saying is all of the potentials exist within each and every single one of us. We are born into this existence containing infinite potential. And in this existence, in this 3D earth illusory separation that we exist in, the potentials are in duality. They are of the light and of the dark. And the beauty of it is that we get to decide. We get to decide in our perspective, in our chosen thought focus. And as humans, because we're veiled, because we don't understand the entirety, we can't see the unity, we see the separation. Because of this, we tend to think outside of ourselves. And so we take these energies that we feel, that we know are present, and we make them into a thing because it's the only way we can wrap our human brain around it. And one thing that has existed throughout time, throughout history, is that humans have misconstrued, misunderstood, distorted the messages that come from these gods, these ancestors, the star people, whatever you want to call them. Humans will hear the message and misunderstand it and take it in a different way. One of the things that we've done is anthropomorphize God. We often think that God is a man with a beard, an old man, a big old man, sitting on a white throne in a white, glimmering, golden castle. And he's sitting there in judgment of us, this man. And this man does not exist. It is just a figment of the human collective imagination because we can't conceptualize how incredibly large, how incredibly infinite this God energy actually is, this creator energy. It's infinite. It's so much bigger than us. It's so much bigger than our human brain. We can't even wrap our brain around it. It's mind-blowing. It's too much. It's too much for our tiny little brains to get in this existence. And so we do something else with it. We have to understand it in our human way. And so this is what we do. We make these energies into creatures. So we do the same thing with gods and we do the same thing with demons. Doesn't matter, either or. We create them into things. Now, we don't always realize that we do this with demons. We actually think that they're actually things. They're actually these beings that are sitting there like twiddling their fingers together, just waiting to take advantage or attack us in some way. And sometimes people will get into this fear thought form and it can take over. And if we get into that perspective, into that thought form, into that fear, then that is exactly what we will see.
Before we continue on with today's episode, for those of you interested in getting more fantastic fungi in your life, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a friend of mine's brand new company, The Great Mother. Recently, I have been drinking The Great Mother's superfood mushroom coffee alternative called Ritual, as well as regularly taking their awesome Ally microdoses, and I am truly loving both. As you probably know, these days, many of the world's highest achievers and performers swear by microdosing. The problem is it can still be difficult to get a hold of magic mushrooms. That's why when my friend reached out, who lives in an area and country where legalization is not a problem like it was in the past, and said he'd be willing to offer microdoses to my listeners, I wanted to pass the word along. Ally microdoses are 100% organic And in addition to a small amount of the magic active ingredient, they also contain functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, and other brain boosters like bacopa. Ally is essentially a full spectrum nootropic. And of course, the coffee alternative ritual doesn't contain magic mushrooms, but it has an array of the best organic functional mushrooms in the world. And, with functional mushrooms, it's really important to get them from the highest integrity sources. And whereas some other highly popular mushroom coffee alternatives on the market only contain a few varieties of functional mushrooms in their actual ingredients, Ritual has 7. Not only does it contain more types, it also contains 3 to 4 times the amount that the big brands have in each serving, and it tastes amazing. I actually like to have it on its own as well as mixing it into my coffee sometimes as well. However, since this is definitely a unique offering, there are a few steps. First, just reach out and request to follow the private page, thegreat.mother on Instagram. Once you've been accepted to follow, just message what you're interested in getting and someone will get back to you.
When I think about negative entities or entity attachments, I think about how shamans see negative energy. Shamans will see negative energy as a entity attachment. They will see the energy in form. However, that energy shows up in their mind is what they see. So it's interesting that we have been doing this and understanding it in this way for so long. It's also a very good practice when we're working with our own inner demons, that shadow side of ourself, to look at that energy and do exactly this, to turn it into a form, make it look like a thing. What does that thing look like? So that you can understand it, so that you can understand yourself better. We all have angels and demons within us. We all have a light side and a dark side. We are completely dualistic beings. And it is so incredibly important for us to accept ourselves as a whole, not to fear one aspect of ourselves or to think that there is anything outside of us that can affect us in a way like an entity attachment. The reality of an entity attachment is actually this, in my perspective. When we are maintaining a thought focus, when our energetic direction is being steered in a certain way, then what we will find is continual thoughts that are going to be continuing to steer us in that direction. And when our thoughts are in a certain direction, what we're doing is staying in that vibration. When we stay in that vibration, that is what we open ourselves up to. That's essentially what we're asking our external environment to mirror to us, is exactly what we're thinking, exactly where we have chosen to place our thoughts and therefore our vibration. So an entity attachment is just that, an attachment to the thought that is creating the vibration that allows this attachment to be there. It feels like a negative attachment. It feels like this awful negative grip. Of course it does. Change the focus. Because if we do not change the focus, then we will not be able to see or hear or feel the other angelic side of us that is also there, ever present, and also full of infinite potential. We have all of this within us. That is the beautiful thing. We get to use our free will, our power of will, to make this choice, to change our thought, to change our perspective. So let's talk about a different perspective. How can we view our inner demons? I said before, we are here to make a choice. We're here to learn to serve others or to serve ourselves. Now, we get presented with all sorts of opportunities in order to make this choice. We have to learn all of these different lessons. And we first get to learn them the easy way, but we don't do it. None of us do it the easy way. All of us do it the hard way. So here comes all of this attention on the negative. It's easier to see, and this is how we learn, because it's got to be hard for us. Unfortunately, we've been doing this for so long along this karmic wheel as souls that it's had to get harder and harder so that we can actually see the light. We get so caught up groping around in the darkness, not being able to see the light that is clearly ever present. So, in order to look at this in a new light, to see these aspects of ourselves, both our demons and our angels, as an aspect of our whole, to be able to come in full acceptance of ourselves in both our shadow and our light, to recognize these shadows within ourselves, to recognize these vibrations, these anthropomorphized beings as helpers, as guides along our way. Just as we talk about making soul contracts with other humans along our journey, those that are going to come in and persecute us or victimize us so that we can learn. This works the same way. These energies work with us in the same way. And I've had many, many, many years of experience in regressing people, in going into these spirit realms where people have these types of questions about either a negative entity or a negative being. And each and every single time, the perspective of the conscious mind is completely different from that of the higher self perspective. From the higher self perspective, what I hear over the last 10 years of doing this work is that all the dark, all the light is one, and it is all incredibly necessary. There is not a single battery that would work in this existence without a positive and a negative charge. We would have no power, no energy, no nada. So think about it like that. Necessary opportunities, necessary friends who we don't find to be so friendly, but in the end are our greatest teachers. So when these opportunities come to us, we can look at them in that way and say, thank you, my friend. Go in peace. This is something I do in each of my meditations in the morning because, let's be real, human life is not easy. And we do get bombarded with the darkness, and it can be overwhelming. So I sit in my meditation. One of the things that I do is I say, any and all negative thought forms or distortions, I command you to leave my space. You are not welcome at this time. Thank you, my friends. Go in love, go in peace. And when I do that, I intend, I imagine, I visualize sending them on with love, on with peace, on with harmony, giving that energy, that love in recognition of the oneness and the unity from which it came. Now, this leads me to my final point of today. We often think about needing to protect ourselves from the negative. The only protection we ever need is love. Love for ourselves, love for our other selves, love for the whole. That is the only protection you ever need, because if you remain in this vibration of love, you remain glimmering in a bright, shiny light, and no darkness can come even close to touching that. When you remain in this focus of love, that is what you see. That is what you attract. That is how you live. And in recognition of the wholeness and unity of all that there is. This is a very, very big point. When you understand this, when you truly understand it, when you get it that this is how energy works, you also understand that love is the only protection that you ever need. I think that is going to be it for me today, everyone. I love you all so much. Before I go, one last final call for our Psychic Skills 101 workshop happening this Saturday, November 4th, 10 a.m. Pacific time. You can find the details on my website, drerica.love. We'd love to see you there. And I'm going to play you a song for today. This is Geometry, Frequency Shift. Until next time, I love you all.